everyone. Welcome back to The Doctor is In. I'm Dr. Nadia Saba, president and founder of Dr. Greenhouse, and you have come to the podcast where we talk everything about how to manage the environment to grow plants indoors and greenhouses and other kinds of structures and buildings where we want to control and manage the environment. So today I am going to talk about 5 things you need to know about airflow. So just to give you a quick outline, we're going to cover today terminology, why airflow is important. Number 3, what airspeed do we want to target across our plants? Number 4, how do we deliver air to our plants? And number 5, how much air do we want our HVAC system to process? So let's start with a little bit of terminology. So, I would say in general, airflow, the word airflow, is used interchangeably to describe how we move air, right? How we move air across plants, how we move air through the space where the plants are growing, how we move air through our HVAC system, how we move air from point A to point B. But technically speaking, airflow is really about volume of air and the movement of that volume. When we talk about air velocity, that's the speed. That is, distance over time, and the speed at which we deliver air across the plants is what affects a lot of its processes. Airflow, on the other hand, is usually delivered through fans or through ductwork and tubes that are moving volumes of air into our space, around our space, and eventually, hopefully, to and around our plants. And then the third terminology that we have are air change rates. So air change rates is really the volume of air that we're moving over time. There's kind of 2 terms that are associated with air change rates. There's air exchange rate and there's air turnover rate. And so the difference between air exchange and air turnover is that air exchange is really related to ventilation. How much air, what volume of air is in our space that we're then displacing or replacing with outside air, with ventilation air. So air exchange, we're exchanging the inside air with fresh outside air. Then we have air turnover rates, or ATR, and what that is, it's similar. It's a cousin of air exchange rate, but it doesn't necessarily have to do with ventilation. It's really just the volume of air that your HVAC system processes. So what is the volume, the turnover rate of exchanging air inside your room, pushing it or processing it through an air conditioner or a dehumidifier or some other system, and then sending that air back to the room. So air exchange rate is about ventilation, air turnover rate is about air conditioning processing, and together we can combine them into a common term, which is air change rate. And it's the volume of the room that we change over a given amount of time. So those are the 3 main terms. We have air flow, which is the volume of air we're moving, air velocity, which is the speed of the air that's moving, and air change rates is the volume of air moving through the room. Okay, so number 2, why is airflow important anyway? Why should we care about the air speed or the air volume or the air change rates when it comes to indoor plant environments? Well, if we start at the plant level, right, then airspeed is really important and airflow is really important for really 3 main reasons. One is for gas exchange, the second is heat exchange, and the third is just to maintain or to build plant strength. So when it comes to gas exchange, we move air to the plant in order to deliver carbon dioxide to that plant, which it needs for photosynthesis. That air then moves past the plant and carries with it some of the byproducts of photosynthesis, which is carbon dioxide, as well as the byproducts of transpiration, which is water vapor. So, if we didn't move air across our plants, then there'd basically be an air bubble that would form over our leaves and our stomata and our plant. And we'd have these really high concentrations of oxygen as the plant, use that CO2 and replaced it, right? Breathed out the oxygen. That oxygen wouldn't have anywhere to go. Same with water vapor. A lot of people struggle with humidity control, and if we don't have good airflow across our plants, then you get this high concentration, basically 100% humidity condition, saturation condition around the stomata. And then it's harder for the stomata then to release water vapor into a very humid bubble that is surrounding the stomata. So having good airflow, one, to replace the air that's around the plants, right? Replace those byproducts with fresh air, fresh other greenhouse or indoor room air, and then doing it at a speed at which it supports the plant is really important. The other thing is heat exchange, right? The plants are are inside a room that has a certain temperature and humidity and is getting radiated by the lights and by the sun. And so the leaf temperature and the plant temperature is really affected by its environment. And so if our plant is hot, right, because we have these high pressure sodium lamps burning down on it, or we have a lot of solar radiation coming in from the greenhouses, then we can move cooler air from inside the room and push that heat away, right? And kind of cool that plant down, kind of like we think about when with a wind chill, or if we it's a windy day but it's a warm day, right? And it feels cooler just because there's some wind, right? Some air breezing across our skin. But the same is true on the opposite side. If the plant is cold, if it's winter or if it's nighttime and we don't have high temperatures, surrounding the plant, or we don't have radiant heat coming in from light sources, then we can warm up the air around the plant, and then we can actually push that warmer air towards the cool plant to warm it up. And actually, we're starting to see some of that type of balance happening as people are switching to LED lights, is that the plants are not experiencing the same level of radiant heat under LEDs as they did under high pressure sodium. And so the leaf temperature is cooler. And so, one of the things that experienced growers have noticed is that the plants aren't growing as quickly because there's not as much heat available to the plant. So in that case, what some growers have learned and what we definitely recommend is raise the air temperature, and then that warmer air can help to warm the plant up and speed up the rate of photosynthesis and growth. And then the third reason to have airflow across your plant is to build its strength. When you have, strong breezes, then the plants are going to build up the cell walls in order to make them more rigid, and support the plant more under that sort of windy condition. So you get really strong stems, really strong branches, thicker leaves. So having a higher air velocity or having more airflow can really help build up the vegetative growth of the plant. But on the flip side, you have to be really careful, because if you blow too much air across your plant, then it's going to use a lot of water because it's going to be transpiring a lot harder. And you also better make sure that there's enough carbon dioxide in that air to make up for anything that you're blowing away from the plant. The other thing is that, having good airflow, it really deters pests, especially flying insects from landing on your plants. But again, if you have too high of an airflow, you can actually transmit, right, and transport mold spores and other potential contaminants to more places within your growing space. So if you ask, what is the ideal airspeed? What, if we come back and we say, okay, air velocity, what do we want to deliver to our plants in terms of airspeed? And in general, we recommend anywhere between 0.35 and 1 meter per second, and that's 80 to 200 feet per minute. The higher the velocity, the more vegetative growth you're going to support for the reasons that I described earlier. And so, having a higher air velocity can be really good if you're a cannabis grower during the veg stage, even for mothers as you're trying to grow out, right, those stems and branches and leaves in order to then support the flower production. Same with tomatoes and cucumbers and any sort of flowering and fruiting crop. The higher the airspeed earlier in its growth phase, the more, the stronger that plant's going to be to support the fruit and flowers that it will eventually produce. If you're growing just a truly vegetative crop, if you're growing, lettuce or Swiss chard or basil, if you can achieve a higher air velocity within that plant canopy, then you can build up the cell walls, make a crunchier, thicker leaf and lettuce, if that's what you're going for, say, growing a romaine lettuce. Now, there might be some varietals that you want more of a tender and softer leaf. So, playing with the air velocity, figuring out what's right for your cultivar and for your varietal is really important. And, having a lower velocity is tricky. One, it's really good because we know that, more for a flowering and fruiting plant, having a lower velocity is going to, encourage your plant to put more of its resources into the flowers and the fruits that are your sellable product, as opposed to putting resources into building up the green part of the plant. However, if you have low air speeds, then, there is risk for not exchanging gases well enough, not exchanging heat well enough, and you can get microclimates in your canopy and around your plant. So in order to achieve, a lower velocity, you might need more air flowing devices to deliver air to plants in more places rather than just relying on bigger systems to try to deliver all that airflow and really isolate how you're delivering air to each and every plant or zones within your room. So if we talk about how to deliver air to our plants and around our room, I mentioned earlier that the two main methods are fans and ducts. Fans, everybody knows what a fan is, right? And it's a blade and a motor, and it's moving air from over here to over there. And in greenhouses and indoor farms, right, there's in general two types of fans. There's horizontal airflow fans that are moving air horizontally over the top of the crop, or maybe sometimes inside the canopy. And then we have vertical airflow fans that are pushing air down or pulling air up and really trying to destratify the air from high to low. Horizontal airflow fans and their arrangements have been around for a long time. They work really well to circulate and mix the air and create uniformity above the canopy. And when you think about plants, 90% of plants grow from the top of the plant, right? From that apical meristem. And so really what we're concerned with is managing the environment at the top of the plant to encourage growth. Now, of course, we want to manage airflow within the canopy where we have many flowering and fruiting bodies, right, that are, kind of growing from top down to the middle or bottom of the plant. But for growth and for the health of the plant, making sure that we have a really good environment at the top of the canopy is important, and horizontal airflow fans do that really well. Vertical airflow fans, depending on the type that you get, some are better at destratifying and some are better at actually blowing air down into the canopy. I don't normally recommend vertical airflow fan designs. However, I will say that when you have plants like a lettuce plant that has a very tight canopy, very dense leaves, that if you can blow air down into that plant or into those plants, then you are going to get much better gas exchange and thermal heat transfer and reduce your incidence of things like leaf tip burn and heat stress. So there is a time and a place, a crop and a place for both types of fan designs. There's also ducts. We use ducts to positively pressurize or to deliver air from, say, an air conditioner into the room or the greenhouse and deliver that air to multiple locations, that conditioned air, right? A fan is delivering the air that and circulating the air that's already in the room. But a duct has the opportunity to deliver air that's directly coming from an air conditioner. Now, we also see ducts that use the air that's in the room, right? So the air conditioner or the evaporative cooling pad or whatever has delivered that conditioned air into the space, and then there's a fan attached to a duct that then distributes that air from one end to the other end of the greenhouse or of the room, for example. And those ducts can be really effective at creating the same exact air velocity from end to end, but only if they're designed correctly. We walk into a lot of facilities where there is, the hole size, the diffuser types, the duct diameters and dimensions are the same from end to end, which does not create equal pressure. It does not create equal airflow or air velocities from one end to the other end. So it's really important, if you're going to use ducts to distribute your air, that you hire an engineer, like us, for example, who can actually design that duct system and those fans attached to the duct in a way that will truly create equal conditions all over the greenhouse. So, how much air should we be changing over in an indoor farm and a greenhouse? I actually get this question a lot as people are sort of back of the envelope calculating, how big should my HVAC system be? How big should my exhaust fans in my greenhouse be? And, through a lot of projects that we've worked on now, as well as a lot of the experience in greenhouse design and operation, I would say that there are some rules of thumb, and these rules of thumb are going to vary on many different variables, including, what is your location? Are you single level or double tier or more inside your indoor farm? And, what crops are you growing and what exactly are the conditions that you're targeting? But I would say in general for a greenhouse that you are targeting anywhere between 45 and 60 air exchange rates per hour if you're using exhaust fans, right, and ventilation as your primary means of conditioning the greenhouse. If you are in an indoor facility using, say a packaged air conditioning unit, or even air handling units, then we would recommend anywhere between 15 and 30 air turnover rates. And that is a pretty big difference, 15 to 30 air turnover rates per hour. But it really, like I said, it depends on, are you single level? Are you double level? what is the height and dimensions of your room? What is the crop that you're growing and the lights that you're using to grow them? And so we have sort of landed on 15 to 30. I will say that the higher the air turnover rates, the more stable of an environment you will get. And so we kind of shoot for greater than 20 in general for our designs. Okay, so those are the 5 things that you need to know about airflow in a greenhouse or other indoor plant environment. One, there is a difference between airflow, air velocity, air change rates, which we also call air exchange rates or air turnover rates, depending on the source of the air and how we're conditioning it. Airflow is really important for gas exchange, heat exchange, as well as creating a strong plant. The airspeed that we recommend is anywhere between 80 and 200 feet per minute, or for my metric fans, 0.35 to 1 meter per second. We deliver the air and circulate the air using either horizontal airflow fans, vertical airflow fans, or ducts, and we really want to make sure that those ducts are sized adequately to truly deliver an equal velocity and volume of air everywhere we're trying to achieve that. And if we are processing that air, if we're thinking about what is the correct air change rates, if we're in a greenhouse, we recommend 45 to 60 air changes per hour. And if you're in an indoor plant environment that is relying on electric lighting, then we recommend anywhere between 15 and 30 air turnover rates per hour. All right, if you have any questions, if there's any topics that you would like me to cover in future podcast lessons, please let me know. You can contact me at asknadia@drgreenhouse.com. Have a great day, everybody.